Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan here from the rocksandstocksnews.com website. This is another series of our interviews with junior mining company executives that have recently had some impressive news out. And today I have Mario Stifano, who is the CEO of Galantas Gold Corp. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mario.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
As I said, these shows are revolve around news. And recently, Galantas had some very impressive news. It's given me the feeling of the Dalradian story. I started following that. It was my only ever pick in Ireland. Now I've got a new one with Galantas, and I started following it at about 25 cents. And I recommended it many times when I used to be on BNN a lot and other places. And ultimately, it turned into a fabulous winner as a takeover. And I think we might have a Dalradian 2.0 here with Mario's company. Mario, let's start with the recent news release on drill results.
Well, Alan, as you alluded to, we got some really great results at our Kearney vein from underground drilling. We drilled 26.7 grams gold over 2.9 meters. And that's really important for us because that drill hole was 13 meters west of the main Kearney vein. And it's lining up with another hole we drilled in our first news release from a few weeks prior to that of 17.7 grams over 2.5 meters. And if you look at the Kearney vein, which is running well over 7 grams in our resource, which we are going to put into our mine plan, what's really interesting about this particular, we call it a stringer vein, because we just didn't have enough holes to demonstrate continuity. But the main Kearney vein is 850 meters of strike. And these two holes are about 60 meters of strike now. And we do have some additional holes to the north that appear to line up. And if we can get significant strike length to the stringer vein, as these drill holes are demonstrating, we can get some really good grades, some really great widths, which would really help from a mining perspective, as well as obviously building our resources. And as you look a little bit further north to the Kearney vein, an area we still haven't even drill tested as yet is an area that was tested in the 80s with Panjar drilling by Rio Tinto. And they were getting up to 31 grams in rock samples from Panjar. So it's almost like a type of auger drilling. So we're pretty confident that as we continue to drill, whether it's the Kearney vein, whether it's the Joshua vein, which we hope to have some drill results from the Joshua vein, hopefully in the next few weeks on that one, we'll be able to demonstrate to the market that what we're starting to see here is the beginning of a high-grade gold discovery that will also produce gold, which I think is a rare combination in this junior market environment.
To put it into context, not just on the Dalradian side of things, which you're in close proximity to, but there's a big regional crustal structure. These are deep structures. They go right down to the mantle. And these are called orogenic gold veins. And the most famous one that's currently on the looking out there is the Fosterville mine in Australia. And to put that into context, they mine that in near surface for 20 years before they found the rich zone deeper. And this structure we're talking about here extends all the way into Newfoundland. And what makes these orogenic vein systems so impressive is not only will you have a series of them, but they tend to be very high grade and high margin. I mean, whether you're looking at an open pit target or a underground mine, margin is king. I've often heard people say grade is king. I think grade is queen and margin is king.
Exactly.
And
Very true.
that's what I think you're looking at here. is a cluster of orogenic veins that they are wide open at depth. And now that you get a little deeper and not that much deeper, you're hitting some bonanza grades.
Yes, and really, this drill program, a lot of this drill program was designed to try and test some of these dilation zones. And the purpose for that is to see if we can find some of these thicker and higher grade areas. And we're getting some success doing that. And as you pointed out, the more higher grade intercepts we get in addition to thicker grades, well, that's directly going to feed to the bottom line because your operating costs are going to go down quite significantly and your margin is going to go up quite significantly as well, as you just alluded to. And to your point, I mean, you're clearly on something because you do understand these systems and you're an early investor in Dalradian. And Dalradian, I think when they got sold for 550 million Canadian approximately to Orion in 2018, and keep in mind that's well before the current rise in the gold price. I think at the time their 6 million ounces was a 13-gram resource, and they had 26 veins that they identified. I'm hearing that they've identified additional veins, additional resources, which shouldn't be a surprise. The more you drill, the deeper you drill, you're going to find more and more gold. So now you come back to Galantas and what we have. And so far, we've identified 16 veins, and really only 2 veins have really been drilled, which is the Kearney vein and the Joshua vein with any significance. But when you look at the strike potential, so I mentioned the Kearney vein is about 850 meters north-south strike approximately. And this we'll call it a stringer vein, but it's now clearly showing that potentially another vein structure is running north-south as well. But when you now look east-west, which is really important, so just to the west of the Kearney vein, we have Joshua, which, as I said, we got some true results coming out of Joshua. Some great resources there as well, well over 7 grams. And we think as we continue to drill, we'll be able to build on the resources and the grades there as well. But in between the Kearney vein and the Joshua vein, there's Kestrel. There's indication that there's mineralization there. And as you move to the east and you move to the west, for example, we have indication of additional mineralization, and we are working on some geophysics to test some theories on how we can help identify some additional targets in addition to boots on the ground and historical work and soils and streams that we're doing. But we're well over a kilometer in strike between east-west as well as north-south. So this is quite interesting. To your point, we got a really large land package here that I think the more we drill, the more we're going to find. This has been so under-drilled. In total, it's about 25,000 meters of drilling. And a big chunk of that was to build this 500,000 ounce resource at over 7 grams. But really, regional exploration, drilling for additional veins near mine has been quite limited. And I think with the strategy we have now to not only focus on getting the operation up and running, but also focus on exploration, I think is going to bode well for shareholders.
You brought up some really important points there, and I want to emphasize those points. You talked about dilation zones, and for our audience of non-geologists out there, basically what that means is you've got this deep structure that is crustal structure that goes very deep. And bends and turns and hinges in those kind of structures and secondary veining, what it really does is it breaks up the rock and makes it, prepares it so that the fluids from deep up can come in and then find these broken up structural traps, if you will. So that's very important. That's a hallmark of orogenic gold deposits that turn into mines. Secondly, you talked about the strike length of the known veins. Oftentimes in these kind of systems, the strike length near surface can often be multiplied by several multiples in depth. When you have a wide strike length at surface, it tends to go very, very deep. Another good sign that you're sitting on an orogenic system that makes up mines. You also mentioned that you're using geophysics and you're finding to find additional veins. I have a prediction for you, Mario. You're going to find more veins that are blind veins. You won't see them with geophysics. What you'll see them is as you get out of one vein, you extend that drill hole and you start to run into new alteration.
Yeah.
And that alteration will lead you to another vein. I'll give you some examples of that. Mag Silver, which has a new mine of silver in Mexico, that Juanicipio vein was a blind vein. They had no surface outcrop. They had to use some pathfinder minerals to get to it. Another tremendous example is I live in Mexico in a state called Zacatecas. It's the most important silver mining district in the world. 10% of the silver ever produced worldwide comes from the state of Zacatecas. The Mag Silver vein is about 50 miles from me. About 20 miles the other direction is what's called the Milagros vein, or mine. At Milagros, they had two veins that came to surface. They mined those out, and then they were doing a cross cut between the two veins. And while doing that cross cut, they cut another vein, a blind vein. That vein in today's value would be worth about $350,000 a ton.
Jeez.
Just bonanza grade.
Right.
And I bring these up because I know that what these kind of vein systems are like. And that's why I'm giving you that prediction that you're going to tag some blind veins, and those blind veins could be fabulously rich.
I think you're spot on here, Barry, in terms of what the real potential here is at Galantas, because I alluded to the potential surface strike length, and that's really just based on the limited amount of work that either we have done or historically Rio Tinto would have done in the 80s. But when you look in a bigger macro picture, the structure here with these major faults, as you mentioned, are running from Newfoundland all the way into Ireland and the island of Ireland into Scotland. Really, what we're looking for here is the structures that have the potential to host the gold and the fluids, and the geophysics that we're working on will be based on that. Really, what we're looking for is the best structures that has potential to the host fluids coming up. Because I've been exposed to some great geophysics through HPX and Robert Freeland's Typhoon, and really it's a combination of geophysics to boots on the ground, and just as importantly as you were saying, it's the structure. Does the structure have the potential to host mineralization? I always remember Tony McCooch when we were starting up our Lakeshore project up in Timmins, Ontario, and our Timmins West project. Tony would always tell me, because obviously I'm a finance person for people that know me, but I have an interest in learning this business as best as I can. But Tony would always say, you always got to just drill for structure and mine for ore, right? I mean, that's really what you're looking for. You're looking for the structure. If you're in a system, you're going to find the ore, but you got to find the structure that has the potential to host it. And really, that's what we're trying to do here. And when you look further afield from, the current OMA project and the mine, we've got indications of copper mineralization. We've got indication of zinc mineralization. Obviously, in our current ore body, there is lead, there is silver. So these are complex systems. And from a geological perspective, you want complex systems, right? Because they're usually the ones that have multiple pulses of mineralization coming in.
Which gets back to your earlier point about structure. The hallmark of the Fosterville mine is, in the Swan Zone specifically, is that there's complex faulting, and complex is good because those structures are what prepare the rock for the fluids to come up into, gives them a path of least resistance.
Yep.
And then they spread out into like horsetails, and your
Yeah.
horsetails are pretty thick already. Two plus meters is mining widths, and you've got high grade in that mining width. So,
Yep. Exactly.
but
Exactly.
I will go back and tell you that structure is important, but when you're drilling and you get past one vein, keep going for another 100 meters or so. And if you see alteration, keep going because you're going to
Keep
find
going.
blind veins.
Well, and that's sort of our long-term strategy here as we start to get the Kearney vein ready for development. Um, our plan, I think, is just to move over to Joshua, drift over there because there's about 200 meters of development needed to get to the Joshua vein. And the reality is, once we get there, we're going to drill it from underground. We're going to mine the thing. I mean, there's high grade ore there. We know that. There's enough drilling there. A good chunk of it is inferred, but there's lots of continuity here. Obviously, with every vein system, you have pinching and swelling. Nothing is perfectly 4 meter widths for 500 meters. Just doesn't work that way when it comes to mineralization. But we know with these kind of systems, we got a great experienced management team that's mined in Ireland, so we know how to mine on the island. We've got great advisors that know how to mine narrow vein systems, know how to mine gold, know how to operate these kind of systems. And yes, we're going to be smaller scale to start. And really, what we're going to try and do here is
Before we get
try and get.
onto that,
Oh,
Mario,
sure, for
I
sure.
don't want to leave these recent results. There's
Okay.
another key point.
Yep.
We got grade, you got thickness, mining thickness,
Yep.
mineable thickness. But what also excites me and why I brought up Fosterville a couple times is that in these systems you have zonation of grade. And
Mm-hmm.
the higher you are in the system, you tend to get the lower grade, like they did at Fosterville. They mined that for 20 years. Then they got deeper. And in these kind of systems, what you're trying to do is connect the dots of the high grade hits into what you can then mine. And oftentimes, when you start mining it, the grade kicks up again. But when you're looking to connect the dots, you want to see that zonation of grade from surface down. And you have a map on your recent news release that shows the grade distribution. You have sort of a core area where it's lower grade. I have to use that term, even though it's pretty good grades.
7 grams type.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got this lower grade, and now that you're getting deeper, you drilled from the lowest point of the underground workings, you're banging into that higher grade shell, if you will. And that I'm predicting will continue. And
Yes.
that continuity is what makes underground mines. It's not just about hitting high grade. It's about continuity of that high grade. And the fact that you have two veins in close proximity and you're getting that continuity as you get deeper, that's tremendously exciting to me.
It is, Barry, and to your point, and not, as I said, I'm not a geologist, but when I went to the site and looked at some of the core, what really stood out for me was the ore was clay type. So basically, I think you were mentioning earlier where obviously you're thrusting, you're folding,
That causes
and
dilution of grade.
exactly. So if you look at the most recent news release, and we showed a picture of the core, for those that really paying close attention, you'll see the grade is more quartz-like. So you don't get this black clay, which by the way would always cause us headaches in the mill when it was mined as an open pit. But we're going to get much more competent rock and stronger rock as we get deeper. Which
and as you are,
hopefully
look at the grade pickup.
exactly, that's exactly it. So I'm really hopeful as we continue to drill. We've only drilled since May, 1,200 meters. COVID is playing havoc to everyone and waiting for assays. And, we're still trying to take things at Galantas in a very measured way because we want to try and preserve capital while at the same time get the asset ready for development, which we can go into a little bit later. But as we get underground now, and we're going to be drilling Kearney, these are very shallow holes, which is going to allow us to drill a lot of holes. But as we get more and more confidence on what we're starting to find here, and we drift over to Joshua, and we start drilling Joshua from underground, and maybe we go to the north part of Kearney and start drilling that from underground. We're going to have great potential to find high grade mineralization, as you mentioned, plus some of these additional style veins as we start drilling across these structures and see what else we can find here. So, the reason why I got involved here is for the geology, and I know there's been quite a few geologists that looked at this project in the past, and they all came away with the very same feeling that you have, is these veins are going to go down to the bowels of the earth. And really what you got to do is continue drilling and see if we can find some higher grade zones, and thicker widths, in addition to what we already have, which is mineable grades and widths, obviously, which are high grade. But to your Fosterville analogy, and hopefully we get anywhere near Fosterville. I think anyone who puts money into Galantas is going to have a big smile on their face, just like you do right now.
Well, it's because I look for the writing on the wall, and that's why I'm able to get in early, is because I look at models and I look at drill holes. And, a lot of investors, they'll look at it, oh, yeah, well, the grade isn't as good in the clay. And I get excited because I see the potential, the realistic potential for depth and continuity of high grade, and
Yep.
and the potential to find more of that. And it's not lost on me, and I hope it's not lost on my audience, that as you get into that more competent rock, you're hitting thicker intersections of higher grade, and these things go deep, they go on forever. And I believe the continuity is going to be there. Some of these veins will come together at depth. Some of them will spread out. New ones will be found. I think that's what you guys are onto here, Mario.
You get me, every time I chat to you, get me more excited about the project, and it's hard to get me more excited about the project.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And it's not wishful thinking. I've
No, I agree.
watched truth machines and geological models for a long, long time, and I've been in this business since 1993. I know it's hard to believe because I'm so young looking, but no, I've had some great mentors, and that's what they've told me to watch for, and I'm seeing it here, and I saw it with Del Radio.
Yep. Yep. Look, and exactly, I haven't been in the industry as long as you have. But same kind of, I've had some great mentors and people I always talk to and ask them about their views. Um, and anyone who's looked at Galantas, just look at our advisory board, who we have on it. We're of the view that there's real potential here for a significant discovery.
Tony McCooch is the guy who helped find and mine the Fosterville discovery. He's on your team.
Yes, he is. And look, I was quite surprised. I mean, I think I mentioned this before, but Tony and I worked together, obviously, at Lakeshore, and I got tremendous respect for Tony. He's one of the best operators, COs, that I ever worked for, and I have the utmost respect for Tony McCooch, and he's helped me on quite a few things, and I'm forever grateful for Tony to be extremely supportive of me. And so when I called him up on Galantas and I asked him, hey Tony, look, I need someone that has some good operating experience, narrow vein mining. We all know how hard it is at Lakeshore to start up mines, but once you get going, you're going. And do you know anyone? And Tony goes, Mary, I'll help you. Right. So I said, Tony, I didn't call you to help me, but I'm extraordinarily honored. And now I look back, because I know Tony's an extraordinarily busy guy. I mean, the guy's a workhorse, but obviously in the middle of that, he knew he was going to do the deal with Agnico, right? And he still wanted to join, right? So, we've got some great people here with their eyes and ears and skill sets focused on this to try and make this as successful as it can be. And we've got that great geology that is going to give us a head start to try and find a world-class discovery here. And we're in a district, and
That
I really want to
geology,
point that out.
that geology is why Tony McCooch, as busy as he is,
Yes.
wanted to get involved with you guys because he's seen this story play out. He's the
Yes.
guy who found the Fosterville Swan Zone that turned Kirkland Lake into a household name and a
Yep.
highly profitable, low cost producer when they got into their Swan Zone. And I haven't talked to him about this, but I think he probably sees all the same hallmarks, which is why.
I'm sure he has, and I'm sure when you look at Fosterville, you look at Queensway, and you just 20 miles away from us is Dalridian. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We've got a 13-gram ore body that is over 6 million ounces back in 2018, and they've been drilling for another 3 years, right? So I'm pretty confident they're not sitting at 6 million ounces still after 3 years of additional work at the project. So
And I picked that
we got
one off their first drill hole.
exactly, that's brilliant of you,
Number one.
and it's now a world-class discovery, right? And Galantas, it's not the exact same type of mineralization, but it's on the similar structures, same kind of faulting and the structures to allow those fluids, as you keep mentioning, to come up and get deposited in the rocks. That as we continue to drill, just like Dalridian, just like Fosterville, as we get deeper, we're going to find hopefully continued thick, wide grade, high grade zones of mineralization. That really is the goal here for us.
You guys are my next Dalradian, man. I'm going to follow you from the first hole I saw from you guys all the way to big success. Before we close, Mario, I wanted to talk about your business plan because share structure also, not only does geological structure matter to me, share structure matters to me as well. The
Yep.
reason is that if you can keep a tight share structure and you have big success, the rewards for the shareholders are very big. So talk to us
Exactly.
about your business plan.
Yeah, so we have a really tight share structure. And the reason for that is the Galantas strategy prior to the new management team getting involved was always to focus on production. Drill enough ounces so you have 3 to 4 years of mine life ahead of you, and focus on production. And it was a great strategy, but the issue for Galantas was because of their capital constraints, and when they had to get a blasting permit from the Department of Justice in Northern Ireland, they had to be shut down for 2 years for that additional permit, which we now have, and we're able to go back into production. But that 2-year timeline really put the company on its knees. And when we raised additional funds in May of this year, $8 million Canadian, we brought in some great shareholders from, as I've said, Mike Gentile to Eric Sprott, plus all the major shareholders participated. Melcourt participated, which owns 30%. And then Ocean Partners, which is our commodity trader, they participated as well, which is a great endorsement for the company as well. So as a result of that, we have about 70 million shares outstanding. We do have some warrants outstanding.
And Ross Beatty, if my
And
memory
Ross
serves
Beatty,
me correct, I think
yes,
he was an investor in Dalradian. I'm not
he
certain of
was.
that though.
Yes. So Ross Beatty, I do want to clarify, Ross Beatty didn't participate in the $8 million round. And I don't want to put words into Ross's mouth, but this is my understanding. And if I'm incorrect on that, Ross just called me up and I'll correct on the next one. But my understanding is when Ross participated in the earlier rounds of finance, he had over approximately 10% of Galantas. He really wanted the company to focus on exploration because, exactly as you pointed out, Dalridian was onto a major discovery. Galantas, exact same structures, great grades, great widths, and no reason why we couldn't have another major discovery at our project. But the unfortunate part was the money that was invested for exploration was put back into the ground for development when the company couldn't get was tight on cash, and then obviously had some difficulties with the permit, which, as I said, now we're fully permitted, no issues going forward from a permitting perspective. So Ross, when we talked to Ross Beatty, he was on a wait and see. He wanted to make sure that we were on a new strategy, which is exploration with production, not just focused on exploration, on production rather. And I think Ross will be quite pleased as these drill results start to come out. I think it's going to reinforce what he saw as the potential here, as well as the potential now of production to generate free cash flow. And the benefit of that is, as you pointed out, if I can limit the share count, as we get bigger and bigger resource, great hits, new vein discoveries, the benefit to the shareholders is quite significant, because not only are we expanding market cap, we're expanding market cap without having 10, 20, 30% dilution all the time. And that's going to be the key. And we do have about $11 million worth of warrants coming that are exercisable at 40 cents. They're about a year and a half away from expiring. So my hope is, if we do need capital, to continue advancing the project, I'll be able to call on the Eric Sprotts and the Mike Gentiles and the Melcourts of the world and say, hey, rather than issue additional capital, would you be willing to exercise your warrants, so that we keep this in extraordinarily tight fashion? Because I've seen both scenarios in my career. The impact of having a tight share count, the impact of having constant dilution because you just can't find capital, right? And you're at the mercy of the markets. You're at the mercy of the commodity cycle. You're at the mercy of so many things in our industry. And this is not an easy business. Let's be honest here, right? There's just so many things that are outside of our control that could play havoc on us, while at the same time can make us extraordinarily wealthy investors in a project. Fosterville is an example.
I think not only do you have the right plan to expose the geological structure that I think is going to excite the hell out of Ross Beatty when he looks more, and these other guys, I think you have the right plan on the share structure. And this isn't your first rodeo, Mario. You've been around, and you've had buyouts in the past. You've had success in the past. So I think that's why you're doing things the way you are.
Yeah, and I've had difficulties in the past too, right? I mean, even when I was CFO of Lakeshore with Tony McCooch, I mean, there were times we just didn't know where we were going to get money. Because unfortunately, when we were putting our Timmins mine into production, the grade near surface wasn't as we anticipated. You're sort of indicating that. But as we got deeper at Timmins, the grade improved, widths improved. Even at Timmins West, we got some great discoveries. But the hardship in the beginning was quite difficult for Lakeshore, and we had to raise a lot of money. I probably raised now well over 800 million in my career. I stopped tracking it, I guess. But throughout those, there's been easy times, hard times, but all that comes into your experience and trying to always do better on your next project. And I think Galantas has got all the ingredients now to really be successful, from the geology, the exploration potential, the infrastructure in place, the permits, that now I think this is another opportunity for us as shareholders to really create value for ourselves and really deliver some great drill results and some good production to fund future drilling as well and exploration.
Well, it's not just your first rodeo, and your company was one of my big picks of the past. When I saw that Timmins West stuff, I got really excited, and then you guys got bought out, so I couldn't bang the drum as much as I wanted to, Mario.
Yeah. This is a great business. I love it. It's just there's nothing like mining.
Yeah, we're treasure hunters. We're treasure hunters, Mario, and I think you've got a hell of a shot of finding what I like to call jewelry boxes at depth, like at the Swan Zone, and you have all the hallmarks there of a Dalradian 2.0. So you've been very kind with your time. Was there anything you wanted to throw at us before we close off?
No, I would just say for potential investors, current investors, pay attention to some of the catalysts that I expect to come out in the coming weeks. We should have release shortly on the geophysics. And really, it's geophysics, but I think it's going to be important for people to understand the potential, and this is the first geophysics that would have been done in this area since 1980. And you combine that with the structural geology, some of the surface work. It's sort of I anticipate it'll continue to show that we have great potential here geologically. Then we'll have some more drill results coming from Kearney and Joshua because we're continuing to drill. We're not even halfway through our 4,000-meter drill program. Then, of course, we'll be able to start putting together a release and get that out hopefully before the end of the year on our mine plan to actually get some more out of the ground. Things have always takes a little bit longer than anticipated. We've been working quite hard with JDS on the mine plan to make sure that we actually have a really good mine plan that we can all hang our hat on and say, this is a doable mine plan. And with COVID and trying to get equipment, it always takes a few months more than you anticipated, but I think we're almost there now. And I think the market's going to be pleased there as well, that we're going to be able to deliver not only exploration results as we continue to drill, but hopefully some good ore coming out of the ground that'll help fund future exploration, as I mentioned.
We'll get out of that clay kind of material, get into the hard rock stuff, and everybody will.
Yeah, well, we're seeing it. You're seeing it in the core, and that was one of the first things when I went and I talked to Sarah and I went to site. I said, are you seeing more quartz vein at depth? Because your mining costs will go down as well. You don't need as much shotcrete and walk-in and bolting, etc. And Sarah basically indicated, yeah, we have hints of it, but we haven't really drilled deep here, so we don't really know for sure. And to me, my ears always perk up on that sort of thing. What, you don't have any deep drill holes here? So the Kearney vein has only been drilled to about 300 meter, 350 meter depth, the deepest hole. And the Joshua vein only to about 150 meters. And these things are going to go really deep, right? So we know we got to continue drilling this. But that being said, Sarah did indicate there is indication that the rock becomes more competent. We're seeing more quartz vein. And the last hole we just released, if you look at the image, you'll see it's definitely, you don't get the same kind of level of clay material. You're actually getting the quartz type veins in there, which, as you indicated, hopefully as we get deeper and deeper, we're going to get better and better grades and thicker widths.
That's awesome, Mario. I'm going to close it off here. You've been very kind, as I said, and thank you very much. Just give me a couple minutes to close off. So there you go, folks. I'm tremendously excited about Galantas. It has all the earmarks of what I seen happen with Dalradian when I got in early, and ultimately they were bought out. I see the similarities with Fosterville. Tony McCooch, the guy who mined and found Fosterville, is involved with Galantas. The structural story that goes from Ireland all the way to Newfoundland, where you have the biggest gold rush on the planet right now, is in Newfoundland. The structural story, the way you're getting into the higher, the more competent rock. You had that shell that you can see in their news release. That shell of the lower grade was in the clay. Now that they're being able to get into the deeper stuff, they're hitting more competent rock with bigger veins, higher grades. I think that's a trend that you're going to see continue with this drilling. And what makes it equally as exciting, not just their business plan, but those historical underground workings allow them to be able to drill from below in the underground workings and tag that lower, the deeper, without needing to start at the surface and drill deep holes. You can just go from the bottom of the workings and tag and search around with the drill hole for these higher grade, more competent rock discoveries. I think they're going to find more veins. I think they're going to find richer grades with high grade continuity. The company currently has a $28 million valuation. I hope it's not lost on people that I started following Dalradian when it was cheaper than this, and ultimately they were bought out for $500 million. These guys are following the plan that the old way that mining companies grew into major mining companies was to start smaller, and then use the truth machine to build up years of production. And I think that they're going to find lots of continuity that gives them years of high margin gold occurrences. So do your homework as always. My shows are for information purposes only. Speak with your financial advisors. Do that homework. I think you'll like what I see because I certainly do. On that note, have a great day and we'll talk.